Channel 5, Nashville.
On the 5th day, man breathed the air of the earth. And man said, "Let us dispose of our waste into the air, for the winds shall blow them away." And man did. And the air became heavy with dust and choked and burned. And the waters became polluted and foul in their smell. And man said, "It is good."
And on this day, man's first official observance of Earth Day, students in the university town of Madison, Wisconsin, marked the sunrise with a paraphrased version of the book of Genesis.
On the 7th day, man rested from his labors, and the earth was still. For man no longer dwelt upon the earth, and it was good.
Direct from our newsroom in New York, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Eric Severide in Washington, George Herman in Miami, David Shoemaker in Washington, Terry Drinkwater in Los Angeles, Ike Pappas in Chicago, Morton Dean in New York, Dan Rather at the White House, and Bert Quint at the Bustok River in Cambodia.
Good evening. Today's observance of Earth Day, ceremonies aimed at showing what man has done to the bountiful Earth, was marked generally by smaller crowds than anticipated. For a coast-to-coast look at the activities, let's start with Morton Dean in New York.
Oh, beautiful, spacious skies.
America the Beautiful, sung as a dirge, setting the mood for today's protest against the environment. Busy 14th Street and famous Fifth Avenue, usually bumper to bumper with autos, were closed to traffic. Instead, there were thousands of strollers and hundreds of Earth Day exhibits. However, the day was as much a day of protest against the war as it was against pollution.
The worst destructive power in our ecology.
14th Street was spruced up for the occasion. There was no shortage of volunteers to sweep it clean. The day was work for some, but fun for others, especially those youngsters participating in their very first protest. With the air a bit sweeter, 2 sidewalk restaurants were opened, Fresh Vegetables, the luncheon special. Mayor John Lindsay recognized that Earth Day was nothing more than a symbolic exercise.
Take a look at Central Park and at Prospect Park. Look at our architecture from Cobble Hill to the Seagram's building, and then look at the filth, the dirt, the papers, the bottles, and the disposable cans. Try to see the sunset over the Narrows from Fort Hamilton, and as you peer through the smoke and the haze, across the muck of the bay, you know that we are not winning the struggle to live together in a decent environment.
Just a block or two away was reality. New York's traffic, even worse than usual because of the detours.
What way? Huh? Every way you can think of. Cross town, uptown, around town, and downtown. Hear them out there? Time to go, fellas.
In Miami, Earth Day featured the Dead Orange Parade, a parody on the Orange Bowl festivities, complete with a prize-winning float showing a masked Statue of Liberty in a sea of trash and population statistics. Big and small floats showed all aspects of pollution. The Pollution Parade's organizer, Bob Kunst, explains why a parade instead of a teach-in.
We wanted to get down to the man in the street, the worker, the shopper, the guy who comes out on his lunch hour and say, wow, look at what's happening here. Is this really happening in our city?
Crowds were sparse along the way, but a rock band drew an audience to the courthouse to hear the Dead Orange Queen read the poem which won her title.
Flushing, flushing, ever unbouncing, rushing my green world toward murk.
Total cost of the parade, $200. The reaction of the organizers, it was a great beginning. George Herman, CBS News, Miami.
In Detroit, several hundred gathered at Dockside to publicly mourn pollution and to protest the lack of action by industry and public officials.
We protest an economic system which virtually dictates the ruin of our environment. We protest the lack of planning and effective control in these industries, and we protest the consignment of our future to the interests of the powerful.
Across the channel, separating the U.S. and Canada, a similar rally was underway. And on the international boundary, somewhere in midstream, delegations from the neighboring countries met to exchange Earth Day pledges and to lay a wreath in memory of a dying Lake Erie. CBS News, Detroit.
Earth Day in Chicago drew upwards of 4,000 persons to the Civic Center Plaza to hear the cast of Hair sing about the dangers of pollution while others spoke of the problem. Directors of the rally admitted that while a lot of political hot air was expended by the speakers, some constructive ways to eliminate pollution were outlined. One way was offered by Illinois Attorney General William Scott.
You know, they arrested 2 little girls over here for throwing their bras into the Chicago River for water pollution. And yet they stood by and let the steel companies pour 800 million gallons of cyanide and sulfuric acid and metals into your lake, the lake that 30 million people depend on for their water supply. We stand by and watch the city of Milwaukee pour all their filth into the lake that our children are swimming in. Now the time has come that as the attorney for the people of the state of Illinois, for the 11 million citizens, I'm going to sue the city of Milwaukee and force them to halt that pollution.
Halfway through the rally, everyone got wind, or at least a good whiff, of what the whole thing was about. An automobile's transmission went bad, sending clouds of acrid smoke in the downtown area's already polluted atmosphere.
In Washington, where Earth Day activities across the country were coordinated, the local observance was something less than a total success. At one point, when the crowd was painfully small, a young girl moaned, "What we really need are some groovy songs." In fact, music has been the major attraction. At times, the grounds of the Washington Monument seemed like a mini Woodstock, with the clear blue sky of a perfect spring day making any environmental crisis seem a long way off. In suburban Langley, Virginia this morning, a high school biology class began its observance of the day by picketing the headquarters of the Central Intelligence Agency. The youngsters advised CIA workers to consider making better use of carpools to cut down on auto pollution. At L'Enfant Square, the government's own observance, the turnout was even smaller. The speaker was James Farmer.
We all have a stake equally, because if we do not save the environment and save the earth, then whatever we do in civil rights or in a war against poverty will be of no meaning, because then we will have the equality of extinction and the brotherhood of the grave.
In the midst of this demonstration, a small bird fell out of a tree, dead. It seemed an ominous ecological sign to the crowd. Getting ready for the march here to the Washington Monument compared to many earlier anti-war demonstrations. The crowd was mostly young, mostly white, and mostly cynical about President Nixon's dedication to the cause. The march eventually wound its way to the monument, where tonight there will be a rally, more music, and speeches, mostly by Democrats. The Nixon administration would like a part in all this, but the young organizers have kept it at arm's length. They even rejected an invitation to drop by the White House to talk things over.
Certainly ecology is the most generally appealing of all the causes of the love generation, but today it did not attract any really massive support in this part of the country. Modest marches, modest crowds. On the SC campus in Los Angeles, not many to mourn at the mock funeral of what was called the infernal combustion engine. At UCLA, only a few turned in their gasoline credit cards to protest the oil spills. Bottle and beer can collections here and there throughout the West, but in most places, not what the Earth Day planners had hoped for.
5 weeks ago, when these young people started their march for the environment from Sacramento all the way to Southern California, they expected Earth Day to be something of a finale as they approached Los Angeles. But today, few came to hear them talk about what they had seen of man's arrogant behavior towards his environment. If there was meaning to this day here, it was in the small things, youngsters sprucing up their schools. There were many thoughtful but generally not well-attended lectures and panel discussions. We the people are the environmental problem. That was the rather eloquent theme of a special Earth Day Mass in San Francisco. Fewer than 100 came to the cathedral. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
We'll have a CBS News special report on Earth Day, a question of survival, at 10 o'clock tonight, Eastern Time. The Agriculture Department emphasized today that man won't get off cheaply in cleaning up the environment. It told a House committee that American consumers could pay an extra $1 billion in higher food and fiber costs if all chemical weed killers were banned. We simply do not have the labor and machinery available to replace all herbicides, the department said.
Now you can save these growing years with a movie camera, because right now Kodak is making this special low-price offer. It's the Kodak Movie Fun Set, with camera, film, batteries, a book on movie making, and a handy carrying case. Break into movies with everything you need for less than $35 with the Kodak Movie Fun Set.
If the difference between a carpet of Codell polyester and ordinary polyester mystifies you, let's look into it. This is ordinary polyester yarn. Here's the same weight of special Codell polyester for carpets. See, Codell is fatter, booms into a more beautiful carpet. So different, it's patented.
Codell means more carpet to the yard. Look for this label.
You were only a bird in a gilded cage. No rights would they give to you. You've come a long way, babe.
Virginia Slims. This is the Slim cigarette with full, rich Virginia flavor you'll like.
You've got Virginia Slims now, baby. You've come a long, long way.
There's a computer company that has designed information systems for over 400 kinds of business. NCR. So NCR won't have to learn your business first, nor promise more than a computer can do. Someday your company will talk to one of the most experienced computer companies you know, because now you know. NCR means computers.
The White House said today that President Nixon is preparing a message on the draft and an all-volunteer military. More on this story from Dan Rather.
The President is expected to announce tomorrow stopping most occupational draft deferments. Job deferments now are granted at the discretion of local draft boards. Teachers, policemen, firemen, scientists, and engineers are granted such deferments in many areas. But the President, according to sources in the Pentagon and in Congress, would allow present persons who hold such deferments to keep them and to renew them as long as they were eligible under the old regulations. But new applications in most job deferment categories would be eliminated. Now, some of the President's advisors also want him to eliminate deferments for college students, but there is no indication that he plans to announce that tomorrow. Among the reasons for eliminating job deferments is that of making the new draft lottery system work more smoothly and equitably. Occupational deferments, it is argued, often shift the burden of the draft away from sons of upper and middle income families onto those of the poor. Dan Rather, CBS News, the White House.
The Defense Department's trying to close a loophole that has been giving a big tax break to some servicemen stationed in Hawaii and non-combat Asian bases. Under the law, enlisted men can deduct all their monthly pay, and officers up to $500 of theirs for any part of the month spent in the South Vietnam War zone. To qualify for those deductions, a number have taken quickie plane trips over Vietnam. The spokesman said the Pentagon is resorting to directives and controls in efforts to knock out that tax dodge. The communist drive in Cambodia shows no signs of slowing down, and a number of foreign embassies in Phnom Penh, the capital, are considering the possible evacuation of their dependents. Many of the diplomats there have little faith in the new government's ability to deal with the enemy. As one of them said, at this point they could probably have Phnom Penh surrounded within another 2 weeks. In fighting, North Vietnamese units reportedly launched a major attack on Takeo, a provincial capital 50 miles south of Phnom Penh. And the communists still held the battered village of Song, less than 20 miles from the capital. Yesterday, Cambodian forces put together a living shield in an effort to dislodge the enemy. We have a report from Bert Quint.
In this war between Cambodian soldiers and Vietnamese communist troops, the real victims have not been fighting men of either side. They've been these people, Vietnamese civilians living in Cambodia. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of Vietnamese have died in the last couple of weeks under strange circumstances, caught, the Cambodians say, in crossfires between them and the communists. These remain after an experiment at the village of Sang, about 18 miles from Phnom Penh. The village was taken several nights ago by the communists, and the Cambodians have been shelling and strafing it to drive them out. After hitting the village particularly hard from a distance, Cambodian officers wanted to determine whether it was safe for their men to walk in. They used a group of about 60 Vietnamese detainees from the area to find out. The officers won't permit journalists to talk with these people, so all of the details of what happened are not clear. But apparently the Vietnamese were marched into the village with the Cambodians behind them. Communist snipers from the nearby woods opened fire. So did the Cambodians. The Vietnamese were caught in the middle. These few are left. The Cambodian general insists that using Vietnamese as a shield was a good military tactic. Meanwhile, the battle near Sang and along both sides of the Basak River continues, making it the longest sustained encounter of this sporadic war. Bert Quint, CBS News at the Basak River in Cambodia.
Some reports said that 30 of those Vietnamese civilians were either killed or wounded in that crossfire. During the past week, South Vietnamese troops have swept into Cambodian territory on 5 occasions, and military sources claim that in the ensuing battles, government forces killed more than 600 communists and captured 75. The U.S. command announced that 4 more American helicopters have been shot down over South Vietnam and 4 American planes lost over Laos. That represents one of the heaviest one-day tolls of the war. One of the crewmen was killed and 3 others are missing. Authorities on Trinidad are having their hands full trying to put down an uprising by Black Power militants and rebel troops. 5 persons have been reported killed in 2 days of fighting, and business and government offices are closed. Most of the insurgents still are at large, controlling, among other things, the main arsenal outside the capital of Port of Spain. To make up for the weapons shortage, Trinidad officials are getting a shipment of small arms from the United States. And 6 U.S. warships carrying 2,000 Marines have been dispatched to the island to evacuate Americans there if necessary. There are about 1,000 permanent U.S. residents in Trinidad, in addition to numerous tourists. There have been no reports of any being harmed. Martial law is in effect in Colombia following 2 days of post-election rioting by supporters of Gustavo Rojas Pinilla. The former dictator is the apparent loser in the presidential balloting, but he has refused to concede. And during the day, troops surrounded his Bogota home, in effect placing him under house arrest. In the city of Nablus in occupied Jordan, a terrorist grenade exploded near a bus stop, wounding 16 persons, including 3 American women tourists. However, none of the 3 was seriously hurt.
At GMC, we give you pickups with the kind of comfort you'd expect only in a passenger car. Dual headlights, big coil springs, even things like 2 thick sheets of steel in the load bed walls. We're truck specialists at GMC, so our search for better ways to build a truck goes on and on. And who knows where it will lead us next. GMC, the truck people from General Motors.
2 performers, the Maxi Brute versus the Mini Brute. Buick's 1970 Opel Rally Cadet. The Mini Brute has a 102 horsepower engine available. The Maxi Brute has 4 on the floor. The Mini Brute has 4 on the floor for an optional fully automatic 3-speed transmission. The Maxi Brute and the Mini Brute, both good. 2 great performers. But if you want to get somewhere fast, put your money on the Mini.
The Labor Department has announced that living costs rose 0.5% last month, extending the fastest price increases in 20 years. Today's report means that American consumers are paying 6.1% more than they did a year ago. Last month's major hikes were in mortgage interest and medical costs. The averages dropped sharply on the New York Stock Exchange today. Volume 10,800,000 shares. The average price per share on the New York Exchange lost 54 cents. On the American Exchange, 33 cents. Atlanta's 37-day-old garbage strike has been settled with a 4.3% pay hike and fistfights during a closed-door ratification meeting. Mayor Sam Massell, who earlier fired the strikers for refusing to return to work, said they would be rehired without prejudice. The pay raise will mean less than $5 additional a week for most of the employees. Senator Edward Kennedy went to Yale University today to deliver an Earth Day speech. He found himself in the middle of a campus controversy over the impending Black Panther murder trial in New Haven. Ben Silver reports.
Tensions are high on the Yale campus, where black students are demanding that Yale provide $500,000 for the defense of Panthers charged with murder. A general strike to support the Panthers has divided the campus. As Senator Kennedy prepared to speak about environment, he was confronted by militant students who demanded he talk about the Panther case, too.
All I can comment on is that I do not believe that under any conditions should violence be accepted and should violence be implored, because I do not believe that violence brings change. I can just say, unfortunately, I'm an authority on violence, and all it brings is pain and suffering. And there's no place for that in our society today.
In Boston today, a federal judge dismissed anti-draft charges against Yale's chaplain, William Sloan Coffin, and another man. The action closes that case, which also involved Dr. Benjamin Spock. All defendants now have been cleared. In Washington today, a federal judge dismissed a suit seeking to end the Army's surveillance of civilian protesters and extremist groups. The suit, brought by the American Civil Liberties Union, also sought to destroy the records of this so-called spying on civilians. In his dismissal, the judge said the Army has the right to know where trouble might start and the right to know which persons are likely to be the troublemakers and to keep an eye on them. ACLU is appealing. In an unusual antitrust suit today, the federal government accused Westinghouse Electric and two Japanese firms of conspiring to restrain trade between the United States and Japan. They did this, the suit alleges, by exchanging patents and licensing agreements for a large number of products. Consequently, the suit adds, Westinghouse agreed not to sell those products in Japan, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries agreed not to sell in the United States. The biggest Soviet naval exercises in history have been launched to coincide with the 100th anniversary of Lenin's birth. The Pentagon said the Russians have almost 200 ships and submarines deployed around the world. About half of them are in the Atlantic, including the Soviet helicopter carrier Leningrad. Planes and ships of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization are keeping a watch on the Russian fleets, and an American spokesman said, "We're enjoying the opportunity to exercise with them."
Patty, can you guess who this is? Well, Dandruff. Oh, that's John.
Hey, how'd you guess?
Well, how did you guess, Patty? His dandruff is terrible.
That bad.
John stopped kidding himself about his dandruff, started using Head and Shoulders regularly, helped solve his dandruff problem, and he started seeing a little bird named Patty regularly.
Nice hair.
Head and Shoulders, for people who don't worry about dandruff, but ought to.
If you could take the wax off your floor tile like this, you'd see it isn't the floor that gets dirty, it's the wax. Clean it with ammonia. And it dulls the wax shine. See? But Mr. Clean gets the dirt and leaves the wax shining. He has no ammonia to strip wax. He leaves a sheen where you clean. Mr. Clean, great for the floor, or should I say the wax.
one question being asked today is whether Earth Day is but a fad. Eric Severide has some thoughts about the matter. Eric?
Earth Day will have to be extended to Earth year, decade, and generation if the poisoning of water or air and soil is to be halted or even appreciably slowed down. The issue is of that dimension. This exercise is not to be confused with Community Paint-Up Clean-Up Week, coincident with the first nice days of spring. With the new realization of what is happening to the Earth has come the end of old illusions, including the ideas that more is better, that bigger is better, or that nature is something to be conquered. For millions of years, it was the environment that shaped and altered man and all other creatures. It is only in this century, a tiny fraction of time, that man has been shaping and altering the environment to a measurable degree. He has just now begun to take the measurements, to survey his handiwork, and he does not find it good. As a public issue, saving the environment has appeared to be unexceptional, as uncontroversial as motherhood and apple pie. But even motherhood is now under attack as the realization spreads that controlling pollution goes hand in hand with controlling the growth of populations. Yet it seems a fair guess that pollution will not only continue indefinitely as a prime public issue, but that it will become intensely controversial on the federal level with fights over budgets and agency powers, and even more fiercely on local levels where specific factories, products, practices, plots of land, and bodies of water are concerned. Almost anywhere that some advance is made for the general public, some specific individuals are going to lose something. In the end, presumably, everybody will have to pay for the transition. The quarrels will be over how the burdens are to be shared. The issue will be front and center for at least the rest of the 20th century. Pollution goes hand in hand not only with population growth, but with the growth of industry. And neither population nor industry is about to stop growing. With some other issues like poverty or equality of economic and educational opportunity, the main current seems to be forward in spite of many back eddies. In the matter of pollution, the main current is backwards in spite of many forward eddies. We are now dealing with final facts, the chemistry and physics of plant and animal existence, not with the metaphysics of freedom, justice, equality, or the other elastic elements in human happiness. Americans have a world reputation as the people with a reverence for the facts and the figures, the people of the know-how, if not always the know-why. This is a big test of the know-how, and this time we do know why. Walter?
And that's the way it is. Wednesday, April 22nd, 1970. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
There's a computer company that has designed information systems for over 400 kinds of business. NCR. So NCR won't have to learn your business first, nor promise more than a computer can do. Someday your company will talk to one of the most experienced computer companies you know, because now you know. NCR means computers.
Do you have parliaments here?
No, sir. The store's too small. They meet over there.
Oh, no, I mean Parliament cigarettes. An American brand. I'm almost out. These are new Parliament 100s.
Unusual looking.
Extra long kind.
Special filter?
That's Parliament's recessed filter. The filter's tucked inside. Really good idea, Parliaments.
Wish ours was.
They're here. New Parliament 100s.
Direct from our newsroom in New York, it's